Not a coincidence. Look at the title. Appreciate very much the opportunity to be with you this afternoon, and I want to get my thank yous out of the way here at the beginning and thank the congregation here for inviting me to be a part of your work here. It's been a blessing to me, and I want to thank you for your hospitality, for David and Tanya to be able to go in their home and make ourselves at home and enjoy their hospitality, and to have that example before us the last 3 or 4 days, and to be in your company and to receive your encouragement and to experience your fellowship. It's always, and I'm sure the elders would say here also, that whenever you go visit a congregation that's successful, you want to take things back home to make your congregation successful. And I know that Laurie and I have personally benefited from being here, and now the challenge is for us to go back for our congregation to be benefited from us being here. And I want you to know that I appreciate your example and appreciate your efforts here, and you're a big influence back home in our congregation. We appreciate your financial support to the work in our area. I know that we have several members of our congregation that access your online content, and it's a real blessing to them, and I do that too. And so we appreciate your work and want you to know that your fruits and your labors extend far beyond what's going on here. And so I wanted to commend you for that. And if you're ever in our area, please stop by and be with us. And it's always a blessing to see visitors and have other faces come and be with us. And we appreciate your interest in our work and your interest and your encouragement in that. In October, I got it on my memory here, October the 25th through the 26th, we're hosting what we call the River Valley Preaching Series. It's kind of a mini area-wide meeting. Same format. Friday night we have singing and fellowship, and then Saturday we'll have 5 presentations throughout the day. And our theme, our study this year is going to be Jesus Christ. Who is He and why does He matter? And if you want to hear about Jesus, we've devoted a whole day to Jesus. We're going to talk about, in fact, Brother Mike is scheduled to talk about the incarnation of Jesus, and then we have other teachers lined up that are going to be talking about the ministry of Jesus, the death of Jesus, the resurrection of Jesus, and the judgment of Jesus. And so we decided we wanted to make Jesus the focal point of that weekend, and so we would invite you to come. I don't have information. I should have put it up there, but you can go to our website, Wheeler Avenue Church of Christ, wacfc.org, and we have a link where you can register. And registering's not required, but if you want a sandwich, you got to register. So be sure and do that. We have our facility that we've rented. We have a capacity of 400. Last year we were about half full. This year we're expecting a little larger number because it's not that far. And so, some of y'all got that, didn't you? And so y'all come on over and be with us. This afternoon for a little while, Sunday afternoon lessons, you got to increase the volume and decrease the time. So we're going to talk about the joy of the Lord being our strength. Had you ever remember seeing a commercial and the line in the commercial was, "Do you want to get away?" Okay, remember those old Southwest Airlines commercials, "Want to get away?" You know, yeah, we do. As Christians, we want to get away. And, ultimately, we want to get away to glory whenever the Lord comes. But until the Lord comes, we still want to get away. We still want to have places to go where we can find respite from this world and refreshment from this world. And what we want to highlight this afternoon is the joy of the Lord is a place where we can get away to. That the joy of the Lord can provide for us a respite and a place of refreshment and encouragement as we live in this world. And we're taking our text this afternoon from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 8. We were with Haggai this morning, and we're kind of fast forwarding a few years when Nehemiah comes into the picture, and Nehemiah and Ezra are working on the spiritual reform among the people that came back from the Babylonian captivity. And in the beginning of chapter 8, the Bible tells us that the people came to Ezra and said, "Read us the law." And so then Ezra gets the book of the law, and he goes and he reads the book of the law to the people. In verse number 5, it says that Ezra opened the book in the sight of all the people as he was standing above all the people. And when he opened it, all the people stood up. This was a very reverent and moving occasion. First of all, the people were yearning to hear the law read. and they implored their spiritual leaders, read us the law. And then Ezra gets the book, and he stands up on the platform, and he opens the book, and all the people stood up. You know, a lot of times in our service, like we've done here, we'll stand up at the singing of a song. These people stood up at the reading of the word, showing a reverence for the words of the Lord. And Ezra blessed the Lord, the great God, and all the people answered, Amen, Amen, while lifting up their hands. And they bowed their heads and worshiped the Lord with their faces to the ground. And in verse number 8, the Bible tells us that he read distinctly from the book and the law of God, and they gave the sense and helped them to understand the reading. And Nehemiah, who was the governor, Ezra, the priest, and the scribe, and the Levites who taught the people, said to the people, This day is holy to the Lord your God. Do not mourn nor weep, for all the people wept whenever they heard the words of the law. And whenever sometimes as a preacher, you get up and you teach real hard, trying to affect people and move people in their hearts. And that's what happened on this occasion. At the reading of the law, the people were moved in their hearts as they read the law. They heard the law read. They were mindful of their unfaithfulness and the unfaithfulness of their fathers that led to the captivity that put them in the circumstances that they were in at that time. And so you would think that would be a time that Ezra could take advantage of, and he has people before him that are broken. He has people before him that are contrite. But notice what he says. Instead of saying, guys, grab the songbooks, let's sing an invitation song, he says, the day is holy for the Lord. Do not mourn nor weep. You know, a lot of times whenever we're in the presence of crying, and we've talked about that earlier this week, sometimes what we want to do is to get people to stop crying. Well, sometimes people do need to cry because it's good, but in this occasion, we find here that they're told not to mourn because the day was holy to the Lord God. Now, this was the first day of the 7th month, which, according to Leviticus 23, was the Feast of the Trumpets. It was a special day. It was a holy day that was dedicated to the Lord. That it wasn't supposed to be a day of mourning, but it was a day that was holy unto the Lord. And so whenever the law was read and the people mourned, they were told that they shouldn't mourn and that they shouldn't weep. In verse 10, he said to them, Go your way, eat the fat, drink the sweet, and send portions to those for whom nothing is prepared, for this day is holy to our Lord. Do not sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. So the Levites quieted all the people, saying, Be still, for the day is holy. Do not be grieved. And all the people went their way to eat and drink, to send portions, and rejoice greatly, because they understood the words that were declared to them. So it was kind of like a Sunday. We have a service, and then we go eat, go enjoy yourself, and go enjoy this day that is holy to the Lord. And we don't know if they came back for an afternoon service or not. But they were told, don't weep. Do not sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. You know, whenever I look at this, it teaches me a lesson that sometimes we have to sanctify times to just rejoice in the Lord. That even though there may be cause for mourning, even though we might have a conviction of our sin, and even though we may look at the world and all of its circumstances and see that there is just cause for mourning, that there are times that should be sanctified regardless of the circumstances around us for simply rejoicing in the Lord. You know, I think, this is my observation and even my experience, is that we have a hard time sometimes compartmentalizing. You know, it's kind of like, well, if something's bad, it's all bad. Or if something's good, it's all good. You know, it's like on Sunday mornings whenever people come into the assembly. We have miseries out there. We have troubles at home. We have difficult circumstances that are there. And you know what? There's a time when we need to just leave that and just walk into the presence of God's people and the presence of God and just take a deep breath and just enjoy the goodness and the blessing of an eternal Father that loves us and a precious Lamb that died for us. And that we shut out all of the noise and we go to our hiding place, a hiding place in the Lord. And that's what they were calling the people to do on that occasion. Do not sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. The word strength that's used there paints us a very good picture of what the strength is that he's talking about. And it's kind of going to be what we're going to talk about the rest of this afternoon. The word strength that's used there is translated from the Hebrew word which means a fortified place, a defense, a protection. That the joy of the Lord is not something that just infuses us with this strength that we can withstand anything, but rather that the joy of the Lord is a place that we can flee to, a place that we can run to, and we can separate ourselves from all of the things that are on the outside and just enjoy the goodness and the pleasure of the Lord. Want to get away? The joy of the Lord. And just like on that occasion, whenever the people wanted to mourn, the experience that Ezra was calling to them to was not to be mindful of their sin at the reading of the law, but to be mindful of the blessings of God and the joy that is found in Him. Just have joy in the Lord. You know, Psalm 37 and 39, the psalmist says, "But the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble." We're going to look at several verses that talk about the Lord being our strength. But I want us to pay particular attention to the circumstances that each writer, that each teacher says He is our strength in. And as the psalmist says here, He is our strength in the time of trouble. The strength of the Lord is not that He takes away all of our trouble. The strength of the Lord is that He gives us a place to run to be fortified from that trouble. You know, we get it in our mind, well, we can't rejoice unless everything is good. Did you wake up this morning a child of God? Did you wake up this morning as a redeemed and saint? Everything is good. Everything is good. All of this stuff that we see around us and we experience in our life, it's transitory and it's fleeting and it's going to pass away. You woke up this morning, if you're a child of God, with an eternal blessing. It's all good. And so when we hear the noise from the world, as we talked about this morning, we're real easy to get distracted. And so we need to stop and we need to pay attention of the joy that we have in the Lord. And let that be a fortress that we run to. Nahum 1 and verse number 7, "The Lord is good, a stronghold when in the day of trouble, and He knows those who trust in Him." And again, we emphasize it's in the day of trouble. In the midst of everything that's going on around us. Jeremiah 16 and verse number 19, "O Lord, my strength and my fortress." All of these are that same word. So I hope that you're keeping that picture that we had up on the screen in your mind as we see these things. That is a place to run to for defense. Where the trouble is still there, but the trouble is on the other side of the wall, and we're in a place of respite, we're in a place of safety, and we're in a place of encouragement. I appreciate so much what Mike said yesterday in the singing instruction about how coming together here, we come here to experience the order and the beauty of the Lord in the midst of all of the chaos that's out there. To sit here for just a moment and to revel in our hearts in the goodness and the order and the blessings and the beauty of God and to lift Him up. Now, when we walk out those doors, all that stuff is still going to be there. But by being here, it gives us a reminder. It gives us, as the old song says, a foretaste of glory divine. And we need to be reminded of glory as we go through this world. Lest the problems and the chaos and the troubles overcome our soul. It's okay to rejoice when there are bad things going on. Sometimes it just doesn't seem right. It causes a dissonance. It's just, if everything is, that way, everything is wrong on the outside, then how can I feel good? Well, you can feel good because of the truth and the reality of the things that aren't seen, the unseen. We walk by faith and not by sight. And there is a truth that is as real every day as the morning news that we see on the newspaper, and that you're a child of God, and you're a saint of the glorious one. Isaiah 25, verses 4 through 5. Speaking of the Lord, you have been a strength to the poor, a strength to the needy in his distress. And I love the imagery here. The first one is a refuge from the storm. Do y'all have storms here? I know you do. A refuge from the storm. When you go into your freighty hole, does the storm go away? No. The storm's coming. But whenever you go to your cellar or wherever you go, there's a sense of security, there's a sense of safety, there's a sense of peace, while trees and houses and debris are blowing all around you. That's what the refuge and the fortress of the Lord is. A shade from the heat. Whenever you get into that shade, does that make the heat of the sun go down 10, 12, 14 degrees? No. The sun is as hot as the sun was. Doesn't change anything about the sun. But where you are in that shade, you experience the refreshment that comes from the Lord. For the blast of the terrible ones is as a storm against the wall. And again, y'all know all about storms here. I like the next one. You will reduce the noise of aliens. How many of you this morning, while we've been together, have thought about the presidential election? I haven't. How many of you together this morning have thought about inflation? How many of you have thought about the wars going on over on the other side of the world? No. Now, when we walk out of this place, we're going to be bombarded with all of that. But my point is, while we're here, all that matters is the Lord. And it's a time of refreshment. All of the noise that's out in the world, it just seems to go down, doesn't it? And that's why incorporating in our life times of rejoicing is important. Because it reduces the noise of the world. Whenever I begin to listen to God more than I listen to the national news, then the noise of the world begins to decrease as the truth of God fills my mind and stays my heart. Now, I'm a news junkie. I mean, that's something that I struggle with. I like to know what's going on, good or bad. But there's just sometimes I've just got to say, hey, enough is enough. I'm going to turn this thing off and I'm going to put it away and just let it go. And the days that I do that, it's just so refreshing to think about God and to read His Word and to pray. And there's a calm that comes, that steadies the soul. It reduces the noise. And we got a lot of noise in our life. We got a lot of noise. But the Lord is our strength. The joy of the Lord is our fortress. As heat in the shadow of a cloud, the song of the terrible ones will be diminished. You want to lower the noise in your life? Build into your disciplines times of rejoicing. times of joy. You know, we always tell people, well, you need to pray more, you need to study more, you need to fast. What about the discipline of just rejoicing? Of having times in your day where you're going to rejoice through the reading of the Word, you're going to rejoice through the singing of songs, and just focus your mind and your attention and just get away from it all. I promise you it'll be waiting on you when you're done. In Acts 16, verses 22 to 25, whenever Paul and Silas were thrown into the jail at Philippi, it says, the multitude ran together against them. The magistrates tore off their clothes and commanded them to be beaten with rods. And when they had laid many stripes on them, they threw them into prison, commanding the jailer to keep them securely. Having received such a charge, he put them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in the stocks. And what was Paul and Silas's response? But at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. You know what they did? They ran to their fortress. They ran to their fortress. And the prisoners were listening to them. Now again, we look at this, and I don't know about you, but sometimes whenever I see people that are in real hurtful and real desperate situations and they act like nothing's wrong, that makes me uncomfortable. And so I think maybe sometimes whenever we look at something like this, it just doesn't fit within, our thinking. Why would somebody do that? Well, they would do that in order to find what they need in that critical moment. In that critical moment, it wasn't a time to feel sorry for themselves. There's no strength in that. In the critical moment, it was not a time for complaining. There's no strength in that. In those responses to those critical times, you're simply compounding the misery and the problem that you're experiencing. But to take one's mind away from their condition all the way over here to the Lord that they serve and that they rejoice in, that does something. That makes a change. That renews the heart and invigorates the spirit. Philippians 4 and verse 4, 1 Thessalonians 5:16. Paul, talking about rejoicing, says, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice, and rejoice always. The word always there in both instances means in every time with consistency. And we have to understand the value and the importance of a heart of rejoicing. To take time from the chaos around us to enjoy, as Mike said, the beauty and the order that is found in God. To give us that foretaste of glory as we wait for that glory to come. So my admonition, parting admonition, is to find yourself and exercise yourself in the joy of the Lord. To put yourself behind the walls of that fortress that will cut down the noise that's on the outside so that you can come in and simply take a breath and be refreshed and be ready to meet the challenges that are out there in the world. Look for those times of rejoicing. Set aside those times for rejoicing. Just like you're setting aside your time to pray, setting aside your time to study, set aside your time to rejoice. Rejoice by yourself. Rejoice with each other. Invite some friends over to your house and get some books and sit around and just sing with one another and rejoice and again, fortify yourself from all of the troubles and chaos that's in the world. I appreciate your attention very much, and I appreciate the time that we've had to be together. And again, I can't say enough the influence that you're having on me, and I pray that as we've gone through these lessons that something has spoke to your heart, that the Word of God and the power of the Word has been transformative to cause you to think and to cause you to grow so that we can all be the people that we've been called to be in this body called the church, to show forth His praises, who's called us out of darkness into His marvelous light. If you're here this afternoon and you have a spiritual need that you would like to bring to the attention of the congregation that we could attend to at this time, we'd ask you to come as we stand and sing.